He walked into the boardroom like he owned the air inside it. Calm, controlled, slightly too comfortable with silence. He didn't fidget, he didn't apologize. He didn't look away. 3 people were about to lose their jobs that morning. He already knew. He decided the night before over dinner. He slept fine. That part is important. He slept fine. There is a test. It was built for prisons, not boardrooms. Robert Hare designed it in the 1970s for convicted criminals. It has 20 items. Each one measures something specific and cold. Charm that feels real but has no warmth underneath it. Grandiosity, not confidence. Something bigger, thinner, and harder to name. A need for stimulation. Boredom that turns into damage when ignored. Pathological lying, not occasional disgusted but structurally built into how they operate. Manipulation as a default mode, not a last resort. Shallow effect, the face moves, the eyes stay somewhere else. Lack of remorse, not suppressed guilt, actual absence of it. Callousness, an indifference to other people's pain that reads like focus. Poor behavioral controls when the mask slips, usually briefly, usually privately. Parasitic lifestyle in some cases, living off others without awareness. Early behavioral problems, impulsivity, and a history that gets quietly edited. The maximum score is 40. A score above 30 raises serious flags. The average convicted criminal scores around 22 on this scale. The average person scores around 4, maybe 5, maybe 0. Studies suggest the average corporate executive scores around 4 to 8 points higher. That is not nothing. That is a pattern worth paying attention to. Here is what makes this complicated, and it does get complicated. The traits that flag psychopathy also flag certain kinds of business success. Charm reads as executive presence in an interview room. Lack of empathy reads as decisiveness when 300 jobs are cut. Grandiosity reads as vision when the pitch deck is compelling enough. Shallow affect reads as composure under pressure during a crisis call. Callousness reads as objectivity when someone else is holding the emotional weight. The system does not always punish these traits. Sometimes it promotes them. That is not a conspiracy. That is just how certain incentive structures work. The corner office rewards outcomes. It doesn't always ask about the method. So the person who feels nothing while delivering bad news gets praised. The person who stays calm by not processing what they're doing advances. And the person who processes it, who loses sleep, who hesitates, they get passed over, labeled too emotional, too soft, not ready. This is not an accident. It is a selection process nobody announced. And the people being led by these executives rarely have a clear word for it. They just know something feels slightly off in meetings with that person. They know the compliments land strange, too smooth, too well-timed. They know that when something goes wrong, the blame moves fast and clean. It never seems to land on the person at the top. It finds someone lower, someone newer, someone without the right connections yet. And the executive looks genuinely puzzled when you try to explain the damage. Not defensive, not guilty, puzzled. Like you're describing a problem in a foreign language. That puzzlement is not performance. That is the part that should concern you. Because performance implies awareness, implies knowing what you're hiding and choosing to hide it. What the test actually measures is something quieter and more structural than that. It measures the absence of certain internal responses most people take for granted. The slight stomach drop when you've hurt someone and you know it. The background noise of conscience that slows certain decisions down by seconds. The way a normal person's body resists cruelty even when the mind considers it. These are not weaknesses. They are the friction that keeps behavior inside human limits. Remove the friction and decisions get faster, cleaner, more efficient on paper. The spreadsheet looks better, the quarterly call goes smoother, the stock ticks upward, and nobody in that room is measuring what got quietly discarded to get there. Now, and this is where it gets harder to hold cleanly. Not every high-scoring executive is dangerous in the way the word implies. The spectrum is wide. The expression varies enormously, depending on environment and opportunity. Some high scorers are simply very good at reading rooms and feeling nothing after. Some are charming and hollow, but cause only moderate damage in their wake. Some are actively destructive in ways that take years for organizations to fully see. And some score high on certain traits while genuinely scoring low on others. The test is not a binary switch. It is a profile with texture, which means the number alone tells you less than how the traits combine. A person can be grandiose and charming without being manipulative or remorseless. A person can be fearless and decisive without being callous or parasitic. The dangerous combinations are specific, and they tend to show up in patterns. Patterns that people around them notice first in small moments, not dramatic ones. The way they take credit without pausing to acknowledge who actually did the work. The way they remember your usefulness but forget your name when you're no longer useful. The way they talk about people who are absent, flat, efficient, like inventory. The way a conversation with them leaves you feeling vaguely managed afterward. You came in with a problem. You left with a reframe. You're not sure if you were helped or quietly redirected away from something real. That is a skill. It is learned, practiced, and in some cases, entirely unconscious. And it works. That is the uncomfortable part. It works consistently. Because most people are not looking for manipulation. They are looking for leadership. They want someone who seems certain. Someone who doesn't visibly struggle with hard calls. And the high-scoring executive has spent years learning exactly how that person looks. The voice stays level. The eye contact is calibrated. The pause before speaking is practiced. It reads as wisdom. It reads as experience. It reads as someone you can trust. And by the time you have enough data to question that reading, you're already inside the structure. So what do you do with this information once you actually have it? Not as a weapon. Not as a reason to distrust every competent person you meet. But as a lens. A quiet recalibration of what you've been calling leadership. Because the word leadership has absorbed a lot of traits it probably shouldn't protect. Certainty is not the same thing as wisdom. Composure is not the same as strength. The ability to make hard decisions without feeling them is not a superpower. It is a missing component dressed up in the language of results. And results matter. Nobody serious is pretending they don't matter in the real world. But results produced through whom and at what quiet cost to the people involved? That question rarely makes it into the quarterly review. It rarely makes it anywhere official. It lives in the exit interviews nobody reads, in the burnout nobody publicly connects to leadership, in the talented people who left and never fully explained why to anyone above them. They knew something was wrong. They couldn't name it cleanly. So they just left, and the executive moved on, found new people, reset the cycle without registering the pattern. Here is the thing about the Hare checklist that often gets lost in coverage. Hare himself spent years warning that the corporate version of this conversation gets oversimplified. High scores do not automatically mean danger. Context shapes what those traits actually produce. A high-scoring person in a constrained, accountable environment may cause limited damage overall. The same person with unchecked power, unlimited resources, and no real consequences operates differently. The environment is doing work that internal conscience would normally do in other people. Remove the accountability structures, and you find out very quickly what was always underneath. This is why governance matters, why oversight matters, why culture is not just an HR word. These structures exist because we have always known at some level that power reveals people, not corrupts, reveals. What was already there simply has more room to move. Now here is the part that most videos on this topic skip entirely. You will probably never give someone the Hare checklist. You will not score your boss. What you can do is pay attention to the smaller signals over time. Not one conversation, not one bad meeting, not one moment of coldness under pressure. Patterns. Repeated behavior across different situations with different people at different stakes. Does accountability move cleanly, or does it always find someone else to land on? Do people around this person seem to shrink over time or stay themselves? Are the victories shared, or does the story of how they happened quietly shift? Do you leave conversations feeling clearer, or do you leave feeling slightly rearranged? These are not diagnostic questions. They are observational ones. There is a real difference. This video is not a clinical tool. It is not professional mental health guidance. If something in your environment feels genuinely harmful, talking to someone trained to help matters. What this is a framework for seeing something that often hides in plain sight. The psychopath test was built for prisons. The boardroom found a use for the same traits. That does not mean every successful person is dangerous. Most are not. Most are simply human. But some of the traits we have been calling excellence are worth looking at again. More carefully, more honestly, without the quarterly results making the looking harder than it should be. The person who sleeps fine after decisions that cost others something real, notice that. Not with fear, not with accusation, just with clear, unhurried, well-calibrated attention. Because attention, consistent, quiet, unimpressed attention, is often the only thing that actually works.